Got my NYPD hat in case I get into any trouble. I'll definitely get locked up for that. We're gonna go to the park. There should be a lot more snow there, but the sun is coming out, so that's pretty cool. Now I have definitely got to find a launch pad. Freewell did send me this mat. Let's see if it's waterproof. Gotta test it anyway. Oh, it's getting kind of chilly, but it's dry. Up. Roll the drone footage. Now, I know, not the most beautiful of settings, but hey, you've got to start somewhere. Let's run through the basic setup, if you will, and let's get a hang of this DJI Mavic 2 Zoom's camera settings. Okay, so first, this is like your opening screen. You will see the top between the satellites over here and the controller signal. There's a red circle there. That's your obstacle avoidance. That definitely will activate once you take off, but it does not function until you take off, because you might want to take off in some tight areas, and obstacle avoidance can definitely mix things up. So once you launch the drone in the air, I like to leave it for a few seconds, let the obstacle avoidance turn on and kick in. So that's that red circle there that will go green or white once you take off and let you know everything's good to go. Top left, you've got the DJI logo. That will take you back into the menu. We do not want to go there. Let's hit go fly again. Then you have positioning. That tells you the drone is in positioning mode. If you click this little thing to the side here, this little lever here downwards, then you will go into tripod mode. That keeps the drone ultra stable. If you click it back to the middle, you're back in positioning, which P mode, which is the most common mode. And then if you click it up, you're in sports mode, which will tell you caution, no obstacle avoidance works during sports mode at all when you're flying, but the drone goes really fast. Now, if you're coming from DJI Mavic Pro, which is the Mavic Pro 1, then the drone is a lot slower. This drone, even in positioning mode that it's in right now, is very fast. So rarely you will have to use sports mode. Next is satellites. I've got 14 satellites. And then there's the signal for the controller over there. Then there's high definition there that tells you you're getting an HD feed back to the controller. 96% battery on my drone, which is pretty cool. And then those three dots at the top right, those open the functions. First one is your drone, and then next is your obstacle avoidance, then next is your remote control options, then next is your gigahertz, your transmission options, then next is your battery, next is your camera, and at the bottom there just has basic stuff like changing it from miles an hour to kilometers or meters per second or whatever it is. And then you can live stream by choosing your live platform over here and following those steps. You can tell it whether to cache while you're recording, whether to record audio in the cache, that means on your phone. Largest cache capacity, you can increase that if you like sharing stuff right from your phone. Cache doesn't usually look very good, however, I'll warn you of that. Adaptive cache resolution, you can turn that on. That should give you a little better resolution. Audio vision, cache cleanup. After the cache reaches a certain size, in this case 16 gigabytes, it will automatically clean it up. I don't want that. I don't use cache, but if you're just beginning and you want to play around with your phone, you might want to turn those on. Unlocking license, going to be good for 107 pilots. Device name, you can name your device. This doesn't belong to me. Big shout out to Autonomous Drone Services, as we're here, for providing us with the DJI Mavic 2 Zoom and a host of other drones, which I will be reviewing more soon for us to use. Head over to autonomousdroneservices.com. They have classes starting next year, spring. Get on board and learn to fly. Back to the tutorial. We have full screen mode, single finger, double finger. Basically, you just do like this. Full screen mode, that takes away all the stuff. You just press, open up, there you go, you have nothing but the full screen. Two fingers, close up, and then all your stuff will come back. There you go, that's it. That's all full screen mode is. Okay, come back in the bottom here. About, that tells you about the drone and stuff, and your updates, and you can check all your stuff, your flight controller, serial number, and stuff like that. Useful information. Okay, come up back to the gimbal. You can put your gimbal in FPV or follow. FPV locks the gimbal, so it's like an FPV drone. When you go to the side, the drone doesn't go. The gimbal it stays locked. So if you tilt like this, the gimbal will tilt. You tilt the other way, the gimbal will tilt. It will not adjust to make the footage smooth and straight. If you're into FPV, you'll fly like that. If you want aerial footage, do not use that option. You can auto calibrate if your gimbal is not level to the horizon. Adjust gimbal. You can adjust the gimbal yourself manually by rolling the yaw left and right. My gimbal is fine, so I don't need to do that. Gimbal forward and down. You can move the gimbal forward and down. Of course, you can also use the wheel here to move the gimbal down and up. That's the right way to do it. So yeah, you can also do it from the screen as well, which is pretty cool. This drone has an option which you can just press and hold on the screen, move the screen around, and that moves the gimbal left, right, as well as up and down. So that's pretty cool. Okay, you have advanced settings here, max pitch, speed, and smoothness, so you can adjust the pitch and the smoothness. You can see where I have mine. I have mine set on 3015. I haven't really tweaked it because this is mostly just a test drone. I'm not using it for cinematic stuff, so I haven't really played with that a little bit, but this is my settings for now. Seems to work well. You have the gimbal pitch limit. You turn that on, and then the gimbal can pitch all the way up. Like right now, I have it can pitch up that 30 degrees and go down all the way to 90 degrees, of course. Yep. And then I will take that off, and then you will see that full would be, this is full up, can't go up anymore, and I don't want that. I leave my gimbal pitch on the 30 degrees extra because you never know, birds in the sky, that kind of stuff, you want to capture that as well. Okay, your battery tells you your voltage on each cell. It's a 4 cell, so that's pretty good. Smart return home tells you exactly it will return home when there's only enough battery. Don't depend on that, and usually if you get that warning, heed it unless you have experience. So if you're a beginner, just leave that on. Low battery warning at 25%. If you're nervous, you can always raise it to 30 or 35% if you don't want to be flying too long or too far, but I will leave it at stock 25%. Good. Flight time, that tells you how long you've been flying for. Show voltage on main screen, so it not only tells you percentage of the battery, it shows you voltage. If you're a beginner, you want to leave it on percentage because that's easier. 20%, 30%, 40%, get the picture. Let's go into HD. Channel dual, you want it to leave it on dual because you want to do 5.8 as well as 2.4. Channel mode, auto or custom. Auto, I leave it on auto so it can select which one is better. I've never had problems with transmission and these DJI drones, so I'll leave this on auto. Image transmission mode, regular, and then there's HD mode. I leave it on regular because HD will tend to use up a lot more resources, and regular looks just fine for me, so I don't need the HD transmission. HD transmission code rate, I leave it at whatever it is at stock. I don't play around with that. Next is the remote controller. You can calibrate the controller, but you can't do that when the drone is on. I only do that if the sticks are not responding, then I'll calibrate the controller. If it ain't broken, don't fix it. Remote LCD screen, click on that. It tells you what everything is. You see number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4, number 5, 6, 7, see, and it breaks it down for you. So if you want to get a refresher as to what is what, it's numbered here and it's numbered up here. Just match the numbers. Bada bing, bada boom. Sticks mode, it tells you mode 2. That's the standard thing. If you don't like mode 2, then option is number 2 usually is mode 1. Mode 2 is standard, and everybody seems to be flying in mode 2, so I do that because if I have to help other people, it just makes life really simple for me to do, just take over a controller and fly versus wondering what mode another person is in. So I would suggest, if you're a beginner, leave it in mode 2 and learn it like that. These two little buttons at the back here, the C1 and C2, you can customize it to whatever you want to. Let me show you what C2 does when I press this button, exactly what it does. Boom, the camera looks down all the way to the ground, and I press it again, it looks all the way up. Very neat, very convenient. So I leave mine at that. You can customize your buttons to whatever you want. You can customize this button as well to whatever you want. I don't even use that button, but of course you have a bunch of options here. Camera down, camera forward. So if you don't like using these little buttons like I do, you can always use this to look down and look up and program it, yep, through these buttons as well. If you don't like touching in the back, it's all up to you. More buttons that you can program, the better for you. You can program the left, the right, the up and the down, so have fun with that, guys. And remote control linking, that's to link the remote to the drone. If you buy a brand new drone, or even if you buy a refurbished or used drone, it should come linked already. Worst case scenario, that's where you go to link your controller to your drone. We have obstacle avoidance. What I do is turn everything on. Obstacle avoidance disabled. I turn everything on. As you can see here at the top, it tells you that the vision system all the way around is working. That only works in active track. That means like what I did earlier with the vehicle following the drone following the vehicle. It tracks all the way around, like 360 all the way. It's like a bubble, almost like a bubble, protecting the whole drone. This one here that you see here with the two reds at the side is normally when you're in P mode, and that does not track the side. So if you're flying to the right or you're flying to the left, you can hit something. This one here is in sports mode at the bottom where it's all red. That is no sensors at all. I do not suggest you fly like that unless you have experience. And if you do have experience, you're probably not going to be watching this video. So just leave all the obstacle avoidance on. Leave everything on. Everything. You display your radar chart that tells you how close you're coming to obstacles. If you're a beginner, I suggest you leave that on. It's very helpful. Your bottom auxiliary light, that's the bright light that shines at the bottom of the drone. Leave it on auto. It'll come on automatically at night when you're landing. So if you need light for some reason, like you can't find your drone, you can always turn it on or off as you choose, but I leave it on auto. Advanced settings, go to advanced settings and make sure everything is on, will you? Downward positioning sensors, landed positioning sensors, return to home, obstacle detection. That is a must. You want it to detect obstacles when it's returning home, because usually if you lose signal, the drone's returning home, you have no control. You'd like it to avoid obstacles, so leave that on as well. Okay, coming up here, we have at the top here, we have your remote identification, your home point settings. Set it to home or set it to you, meaning wherever you took off, that's this option. that's where the
home point has been updated. Please check it on the map.
That's where the drone will return to. I just set it there and it automatically does it. You don't have to do this every time you take off, or you can set it to the person, and if you move from location to location, the drone will sense where you are and return to you wherever you are. Return at current altitude, I always have that off. I'm in New York City. There are tall buildings around here. I set my limit to the maximum height, which is 400 feet for safety. That's just me. You can have it set to return to current altitude. As long as you're flying in the day, the obstacle avoidance should avoid whatever obstacles are in its way. So you can turn that on. Of course, me, I believe the higher I am, the safer I am. So I leave mine off. Enable flight intelligent modes. I turn that on. That's so you can use the little switch at the side here to go between tripod mode and sports mode and P mode. Make sure that's turned on, because in case you do get stuck in a very high wind, which is very unlikely if you're a beginner, because you'll be very intimidated and afraid to go out and fly if the wind is very high. But nevertheless, leave it on just in case you need to book it. Maybe some birds attack you or something like that. So you've got return to home. I leave mine set at the highest. Here in America it's 120 meters or 400 feet approximately. Beginner mode, I'm not a beginner mode. Even if you're a beginner, I don't recommend that mode. Maximum altitude, of course, is 120 meters. I can't fly higher than that in America. Distance limit, I don't want a distance limit, I'm sorry, and I don't need one. And if I get lost, I'll just hit the home button and I'll return home. So I really don't need that. Advanced settings tells you your exponential. As a beginner, you don't really need this. This will smoothen out the curve on the sticks to help the drone move a little bit smoother. The way it is, it's very jerky and very sensitive, even in P mode, because the drone goes so fast. So as time goes by, you'll want to play around with these and make it a little bit smoother. Either that or get longer sticks, and that will give you more travel and more smoothness. We'll talk about that more in another video to come. But for right now, we're talking about the basics. Sensitivity, I leave these things at stock. I don't really play with them much. That determines how aggressive the drone brakes and among other stuff, how aggressive it is when it's flying. I leave that at stock. If you're a beginner, you should do the same thing too. Gain, roll, pitch, yaw, all of that, I leave it stock. As you become more of a professional and you're looking for more cinematic shots, you'll tend to play around with these yourself. But for now, that's a whole nother video. Let's leave that stock. That basically covers the menu, which is the three dots at the top there. That basically covers everything. Once you've gone through this, you pretty much know what to do. Now let's get familiar with other parts. Okay, this little button right here is to take off. In the top left here is to take off. This is to return home. You can return home. This one is to go in here in the left and get some other settings. Different flight modes. This does not have as much flight modes as the original Mavic, but it does have normal mode, which you normally fly in. You have hyperlapse, which is super cool. This does some nice hyperlapse. It has a quick shot mode. In these quick shots here, you have to take off in order to do the quick shots like boomerang and circle and some other cool features. I'm not sure what that has in it, but you can play around with it and find out. It has active track, which I just use to follow the car. Point of interest, which you can use to orbit things. Tap to fly, where you can tap the screen and the drone will fly there. Not stuff that you will ideally play around with as a beginner. And cinematic mode, which makes everything smoother. It slows the attitude down and stuff like that, where we were just in the settings, and makes the drone just a lot smoother to give you nice, smooth cinematic shots. I highly recommend that if you're a videographer. Okay, let's go back. At the bottom has the APAS, advanced piloting system at the bottom over here. This APAS here allows you to fly between the trees and stuff like that, and it automatically avoids trees, not really branches, but trees with leaves. It will avoid that and fly between it and stuff like that. With you just pushing up on the stick, it will automatically avoid. No questions asked. Okay, this little circle at the bottom here, you click on it, it takes you to the map. Click on the map, you get a full view of the map. The red arrows where you are, the H with the green is the home point where the drone has recorded to return home in case of any emergency or low battery. Click back on the video picture at the bottom left, and you're back on the video view. Click at the top right of this little map box over here, and it turns into a little directional. This is what I fly with. I like to see what direction I am and what orientation I am towards the drone, which is the little red arrow in that little spectrum at the bottom there. Okay, coming here we have the histogram. I always recommend that you leave your histogram on. That tells you if your image is, if your histogram is too much to the left, then you're too dark. If it's too much to the right, then you're too bright. You don't want to be overexposed. That's when it's too much to the right. Too much to the left means it's too dark and you're losing details. So ideally you want to be in the middle, which we are not, but we'll get there once we take off. At the bottom here is your distance, how far you are from your home point, your feet in height. At the bottom right over here we have a little play button. You go into that play button, you can see all your videos and pictures. You can click on video to see video alone. You can click on photos to see photos only. Favorite, if you tag any favorite photos or videos, you'll see it there, or you could just leave it on. Hit the back button. That's so you can review stuff while you're flying. Next, right above that to the left here is your 24mm, and that is your zoom. You use this little wheel here with your right little finger to scroll left and right to zoom in and out. So I'm just going to show you right here. I can zoom in pretty much. It will go up to 48mm, which is optical zoom at 4K, which is what I always film in. If you film in 1080p, then it will go up to like 78 or something like that. We'll go 4x zoom, 2 times optical and 2 times digital. Not as good as optical, but you know, just in case you need a closer view, you can drop it in 1080p and use that as well. So that's a pretty good option, that it tells you how much you zoom right on your screen. You can also use the plus and the minus to zoom, which is pretty good. That little beep that you're hearing there is autofocus. I usually tap to autofocus before I take off to make sure the drone is focused and my image is clean and nice, and then I take off. Okay, right below this red button is to record. You hit the red button, the drone will start recording. You hit the red button again, it will stop recording. You also have a record button here for recording if you don't like touching the screen, and you have a photo record button here if you don't like touching the screen as well. That's another option. Okay, here at the top of the record button is to flip between photos and videos. So if you notice, the photos are a little narrow because I have it on 4:3 photos. We'll talk about that in a second, which for me is the best resolution. If I want it wider, I can always crop the photo, but this takes the best resolution in my opinion. Okay, so you can flip between photos and videos there, or you can just hit the button and it will jump straight to photos if you were in video mode. Okay, next is this, and last but not least is this little settings bar here. You click on the settings here. You have 3 icons at the top there. One is your camera shutter, one is your settings for your recording, and the last one is your general settings. At the bottom you can format internal storage. The drone has its own internal storage, not much, but it'll give you about 8 minutes of recording. 4K should give you some more if you're doing 1080p, or you can format the SD card that's in the camera. Hyperlapse video frame, not sure what that's about, never really used the hyperlapse that much. That's new, now seeing that. Storage location, you can choose between SD card and internal storage. I have it on the SD card. Internal storage for me is only for emergency. File index continuous, that means do you want it to do DJI video number 1, video number 2, video number 3, video number 4, and then when you pull the videos out of the SD card and you pop the SD card back into the drone, do you want it to continue DJI 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, or do you want it to start over when recording files and start over from DJI 1? I like it continuous because when I'm dumping files into folders on my computer with files that are already existing from previous flights, I prefer that it go continuous instead of I getting duplicate file names, even though they're different files. So for me, I leave it on continuous. That is just me. Okay, next, what do we have? We have peaking threshold close. You turn that to high, then you'll see the pink on the screen. That pretty much tells you what's in focus and what's not. Pretty cool tool, but I don't like the pink on my screen. I don't use it too much. I use it a bit more on my Phantom when I'm going for more detailed videos, more professional videos. Not so much on this. This is just, and as a beginner, you're not going to use it much either. So you can just leave that on close. What else do we have? Anti-flicker, I leave that on auto. Center point, you have many options. I use the cross because it's very small, doesn't take up much space on the screen, but they have the narrow cross. The frame, as you can see, is changing right there, the square. I just like the cross. Put it to whatever you want. That basically tells you the center of the screen. And then you have a grid. You can choose different grids. Look at popping up on the screen, or more complex grids. Mostly photographers will use the grids, lines of the third. I don't really use it because I do mostly video. Head LEDs auto turn off. I leave that on so it will automatically turn on and off if I'm shooting videos. I don't want the LEDs to damage the video or the photograph, so I leave it. Let the drone decide whether to take it on and off. The drone does a great job. No need for me to touch that. Overexposure warnings, those are the zebra stripes that tell you if you're overexposed. I don't use them anymore. I just use the histogram that I was telling you about earlier. The zebra stripes get annoying and people complain about it when I put it in videos as well. Okay, let's take that off. Video captions, auto sync HD photos to, I guess that's auto syncing to your phone. Lock gimbal while shooting, I leave that on for a little smoother shot. Histogram on, that's the little box I was telling you about in the corner over here that I'm moving around right now. That's the histogram. You can put it wherever it's convenient for you. Again, to the left, you're too dark, you're losing details, you don't get details in the dark. And to the extreme right of the graph, you're blown out, your whites are too bright, so you ideally want a nice smooth graph in the center. That would be ideal. Save original hyperlapse, that's to save the original hyperlapse photos to your SD card, so you can take it out of your SD card if you're looking for a more professional hyperlapse, if you're willing to go the extra mile, which is more detailed photos, has more details in it, and you can use that to get more professional looking hyperlapses. Save original panorama, you can save that as well in your SD card, so you can extract it from your SD card and get a more professional looking panorama shot edited on your computer if you want. I don't really do much of that either as well. Coming to the next menu, the top here in the middle right there, see the blue line moving to the middle there, we have video size 4K 30 frames a second. You have options here. You can do 24 frames, 25 frames a second. You can also do 30 frames, which I like to do 30 frames. I just like it. Hollywood, they use 24 frames a second, but I'm not into the Hollywood thing unless I'm filming people or cars or stuff like that, moving stuff. You can do 2.7K just in case your computer cannot handle 4K, don't worry. And then there's always 1080p, and 1080p can go up to 120 frames a second to give you nice slow motion shots. So I don't do much of that either, but hey, things to play around with, right? So I'll set it back at what I had it, which is 4K 30 frames a second. That's your video style. Now your video format, MP4 is usually for PC guys, MOV is usually for the Mac guys who use Apple products. White balance, you can leave that on auto. You can leave it on sunny if it's a sunny day, cloudy if it's a cloudy day. I don't really use incandescent. I don't really use neon either. Custom is what I'll use if I'm flying with my Phantom and I'm looking for real precision shots where I don't want the white balance changing on me as I'm flying and being exposed to different colors in the sky. Then I'll set my white balance to what suits me. But as a beginner, you can leave it on auto. It's not a big deal. If you have camera experience, well, then you already know how to tinker with the white balance and get what you want. So for now, I'll leave it on auto. Style, standard is 000. I like working from 000. You can also turn it to landscape, soft, or custom. Most professionals use custom, and they usually go +1 on the sharpness. First column is sharpness, and then you have contrast, and then you have saturation. So I like to leave everything on 0. A lot of people who are filming, they usually use +1. They like to bump up the sharpness a little bit. I just leave mine in 0. You can leave it on standard or whatever suits you. Either which way, you'll get a decent image as a beginner. Okay, coming down to the bottom here, now we have color. We only have 2 color options, unlike the original Mavic Pro, none and decine-alike. Decine-alike is to get more professional shots. If you're a beginner, I suggest you fly in none. Decine-alike is for when you're doing color grading or you want better images when you're flying at night. The last is your encoding format. This does H.264 and H.265. I recommend H.264 if you have a slow computer. This one has a higher compression rate. That's about it. If you're a beginner, just leave it in H.264 for now until you learn more. That's a whole nother video to explain that. And the last one over here, see the blue bar moving over there? That's your camera shutter. You can set it to manual or automatic. If you're a beginner, I suggest you start in auto and leave it in automatic. Let the camera does a great job of handling and exposing and doing everything for you. All you need to do is basically tap to focus, and the camera does everything else. So I recommend you leave it in auto. It will calculate your ISO, which for you, it will calculate your shutter and properly expose your image. If you want a brighter image, you just hit the plus. If you want a darker image, just hit the minus. Ideally, 0 is perfectly exposed, which is what you're ideally looking for. But however, if you need a little bit more brightness, just punch that plus. Now manual is for when you're getting a little bit more advanced. Do you see what happened to the screen out there? It just went all white, and that's because I'm in manual. That's because my shutter is too slow, so I'm letting too much light into the camera. Speed up the shutter a little bit, and that automatically gives me a darker image and a sharper image as well. If you're looking to capture things as they happen, boom, freeze that shot right there without any motion blur or anything like that. Fast shutter speed, which is swiping it to the left, will definitely help you achieve that. However, remember, the faster the shutter speed, the less light that's entering the sensor for a shorter period of time, and as a result, the image gets darker. Right? As you play with the shutter, you can see that your exposure moves to the plus or minus. Ideally, remember, you are looking for minus, ideally. Here we go. So in order for me to be properly exposed, I am at a shutter speed of 13200. Now my ISO also can help to brighten up things. I have control over that in manual as well. However, you can bump up your ISO mostly if you're flying at night. If you have it in auto, the camera will do it for you. But if you choose to fly in manual, you can brighten it up, especially for flying in the night. For flying in the day, I recommend you leave your ISO at 100. That will definitely keep the grain, those little grainy grains, from appearing in your video and photos. And that's pretty much it, guys. If you're a pro and you're seasoned with the camera, you already know manual. So if I were you, I would just jump to auto if you're beginning. That's pretty much it. That's as fast as I could break down the app, run through with you. Watch this video as many times as you need to in order to get the hang of it and understand the camera before you go flying. Guys, don't forget to subscribe to me on Patreon. Link in the description section below. Become a patron. It's only $1 to support my content, and in return, I'll be giving away 6 DJI Mavic 2 Pros or the Zooms, whichever one you prefer, when I hit my Patreon threshold. That means as soon as I have 1,800 patrons, I will go to the DJI store, pick up one of these, or I'll order it from Amazon, ship it, pick a winner from my Patreon account, ship this drone straight to them. Do the same thing the following month, and the following month, and the following month, and the following month, as long as you guys keep supporting me on Patreon for 6 months. And of course, I'd like to thank Autonomous Drone Services for sponsoring this video and giving us their drone to use to make this video possible for me to share with you guys. So big shout out to them. If you're willing to learn to fly, or you have kids, maybe you want to train them and teach them a thing or two, let them learn how to fly the right way, Autonomous Drone Services will be having classes starting spring of 2019. Head over to Autonomous Drone Services and enroll now. Also like to thank madmixtube.com for sponsoring this video as well. Great free space for you to upload your content similar to YouTube, and also great free space for you to go and watch content for free. With that being said, guys, I hope this video was helpful, and if it was, make sure you give it a thumbs up or a thumbs down if you didn't like it, just in case you didn't like it, although that would be really mean. Either which way, do subscribe to get more videos like this. Leave a comment, let me know what type of videos you'd like to see from the DJI Mavic 2 Zoom, as well as the DJI Mavic 2 Pro, as well as the Autel Evo, and whatever drone that you're interested in, because I do have access to all of these equipment. But for now, that's it. This video has been really long, I'm sure, and